everybody. Welcome. I didn't realize that we had an OCPD event today, but thank you very much for turning out. Enjoy the pizza. We're very privileged today to have Mr. Peter Tavlin of Bombardier Aerospace with us here. He works out of Colchester, Vermont. He's going to give you a little bit more background on Bombardier himself, but just to open it up, he is the current director of Aircraft Securitization within the Structured Finance Group at Bombardier, and he's worked with asset portfolios involving 40 airlines, aircraft operators in 17 countries, and over 250 highly structured lease, debt, and sale transactions. And prior to that, he was an IU Pelley grad in the MBA program up there, and he also worked at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, where he served as the Vice President of Global Asset-Based Finance and Leasing Group for them. So with that, let's welcome him. And we're going to have a great presentation today on the abilities, soft skills that employers desire and how to succeed ultimately once you get into these internship programs or your positions after graduation.
I'm really glad to be here. I always love coming back to IU. It's always I really look forward to it. I graduated in '82, my MBA. My wife went here, undergrad and graduate. She's from Evansville. My daughter's a senior here at IU. So I do see her when I come, but I usually extend my visits to do these things at Kelly, and then I started doing it for law school less, and that's great. So these slides here, I think when you go through these slides, a lot these concepts, although I am presenting these concepts as things that you should strive to learn and to do and to get better at when you're on the job, I think you're going to find a lot of these concepts may help you when you interview. Okay? And that's something we can talk about, not so much in this hour, but I'll be here afterwards or Monday when I have the morning. I'm here to talk to groups or individuals or whatever they want to talk about, usually in sort of career related. And we can talk about that if some of these concepts, you have an interest in terms of how I can use it in an interview. We can talk about that. Okay. The people who work for me hear these things over and over and over again because they're very, very important to standing out and being noticed by your employer. And part of my job is to coach, is to develop talent, right? To coach them. And these are some of the things that, besides the actual more sort of technical work that we do in aircraft finance, it's these concepts. So let's start here. Well, actually, let me talk about Bombardier for a minute here. Bombardier is an aircraft manufacturer. It also it has two businesses. It's an aircraft manufacturer. It has an aerospace group and it has a transportation group. It's about half the company is transportation, half is aerospace. In the aerospace side, we manufacture commercial aircraft and regional jets. The regional aircraft, which are used by airlines around the world. I'm sure you've flown on a CRJ here in the United States, probably numerous times. We also manufacture the Dash 8, a turboprop. We've probably flown on that in the United States. So half of our aerospace business is commercial aircraft. Our customers are airlines around the world. The other half is manufacturing of corporate jets. Very different customer base, obviously. Right? You guys have a sense of who acquires corporate jets. My experience, my work has only been on the commercial aircraft side for Bombardier. It's a much more challenging business in my view. It's because of the credit quality of the customers. The credit quality of the airline industry has historically been very challenging, to say it nicely. And that makes it very challenging for us as a manufacturer. The rail side, we manufacture passenger rail cars for subways, for, say, commuter rail systems around the world. In short, there are some other things we do in that business, but again, I'm not involved in that. That's about half the business. The company's headquartered in Montreal, downtown Montreal. The aerospace headquarters is by the airport in Montreal. From our office in Vermont, it's about an hour and a half to downtown Montreal, to the headquarters. Okay, we have about I guess Bombardier sales are about 20 billion a year. We have maybe, I don't know, 50,000 employees worldwide, give or take, something like that. Okay. So let's start off with, I guess, the most important behavior. This, to me, is the most important behavior. Is being trustworthy. Are you trustworthy? Is trustworthiness and integrity. Okay. If this gets violated, I generally can get very upset. This is the number one thing to me. Okay? It's very easy to gain someone's trust. But once you lose that trust, good luck getting it back. Whether it's your boss, your coworkers, or customer. Good luck getting it back when they don't trust you. Okay? People want to deal with people they can trust. I mean, okay, open the Wall Street Journal up. Every day, for how many years do you see all these issues, with people who are untrustworthy, right? Unethical, violating laws. I mean, think about how often you see that. People like to deal with people they can trust. Okay. Transparency. This is related to being trustworthy. Okay, what does this mean, transparency? Just some ideas of a definition. What does it mean to transparency or to be transparent?
You should be honest, probably.
Yes, that is one definition, right? Okay.
Yeah, you should reflect what goes on the inside.
I'm sorry?
You should reflect what really goes on the inside in your corporation and not like try to hide things.
Yes, you're on the right track. Yeah. Okay, here are some definitions from the dictionary. Candid or open, honest and open, not secretive, easy to understand or easy to notice or understand, readily understood, others. The ones I like are this: free from guile and free from deceit. I actually did this with people in my group because I talk about transparency, but I'm not sure if they understood what that means. And so I had a staff meeting I have once a week, and I asked them, I said, bring to the meeting the definition of transparency. We all brought a definition, and we talked about it. And this is the one, to me, that you're dealing with people in a way that's free from guile or free from deceit. Okay? Very important to me. Okay? It doesn't mean sharing everything with the person. It doesn't mean sharing all the information with your customer. It doesn't mean sharing all the information with my employees. There are certain things that we can't share with employees. Sometimes I'll tell them, I'll say, I can't share everything with you, but this is what I can tell you. Right? So it doesn't mean telling the customer everything. I mean, you are negotiating with a customer. You don't have to tell them, how you are analyzing your, negotiating position, right? So it doesn't mean telling them everything. Okay. But it means that you're not trying to, again, your interactions are free from guile and deceit. Okay, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What does this mean? The people who work for me, when they're working on something, I need to know on a project or what they're doing, I need to know what's going well, what's going not well, what's a real problem. I cannot have them coming to me and only telling me the good things, but not telling me that there's a problem over here. Very, very poor judgment in my mind. We need to know if something is not going off the rails. It happens, and we need to know so we can come up with a solution that fixes it. Right? This has to do with trustworthiness. Can I trust you to tell me, if there's a problem? And maybe the problem is a mistake the person made. Look, that's okay. We all make mistakes. Right? I'm not looking for perfection. Right? I'm not looking, because I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm not looking for perfection. But I do need to know if there's a problem. I need to know so we can figure out how to fix it. So can I trust you? Again, trustworthiness. Front page of the Wall Street Journal. Again, if you are thinking of doing something or not doing something, or saying something or not saying something, and if you don't want it to be, if you would not want that to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, then don't do it. Right? If you think, I would not want people to know that I did this with a customer, or I said this to a customer, or I did say this to a coworker, right? If you wouldn't want other people to know it, then you shouldn't be doing it. So it talks about, if you don't want it on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, think twice about whether you should be taking that action or that inaction. Okay? Okay. Now this is very big in the business world. With a law firm, it may resonate too, but I don't have the experience of working with a law firm because I'm not a lawyer. Okay, but we'll talk about it anyway. Ideas and working hard are good. Those are good things. People have ideas, they work hard. Being smart is good. Smart, the way we think of people who are smart. Those are all good things. But results are what matter. You are paid to solve the problem, close the transaction. You could have a good idea, a great idea, but if you don't implement that idea, it's useless. It's absolutely useless if you don't implement it, right? So working hard's good. And I will put on your performance appraisal a hard worker. That's a good thing. But that's not the same thing as getting results. And that's what we are paid to do, is to solve the problem, close the transaction, whatever it may be. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Being smart and getting results are not the same thing and require different skills. I don't need geniuses when I hire them. There aren't many of them out there. I don't need a genius. I need someone who's smart enough, and I need someone who I feel is going to embrace the behaviors and the way to work that we want them to work. It's very hard in an interview to judge that, though. That's the problem. I can very easily judge if they can be trained to do the job. That's not hard. They can be taught to, but trying to determine if they are, it's very difficult to determine, are they going to fit in? Are they going to be coachable? Are they going to embrace the things, the behaviors that we're looking for? Okay, what was the result? Well, I would ask, okay, what was the result of what you're working on? Or is there more to this? And there is more to it. What was the result, and how did you obtain the result? And how long did it take you to obtain the result? The important one, well, number one is important, number two is important. How did you obtain the result? Did you do it in a trustworthy way? Did you do it in an ethical way? Right? So it's not just, I got the result, it's how did you obtain the result? You're going to be judged on, I'm going to judge people on that. If they obtain the result and they piss people off, well, then I have to find out, well, why? That's probably not a good thing, right? So it taints the fact that they got the result. Okay. Do not mistake activity for accomplishment. People are working hard, I'm really busy working on this, that's all good. But ultimately what matters is accomplishing something. Now that could mean not just solving the problem or closing the transaction, it could be making progress in a week. We want to make so much progress in a week. If we can make that progress, that's an accomplishment. Right? We're moving the transaction forward. We're moving the problem to a solution. Okay? So don't mistake activity for accomplishing something. Okay? Do not mistake hard work for results. Okay? You're a hard worker, that's good. You will be recognized for being a hard worker. But if you don't get results, or you have trouble getting results, we have to work on that. We have to, it's sort of personal development. Okay. Ability to communicate. This is something you learn from practice and experience. Being clear, concise, and to the point. It takes a lot of practice. Very important. Whether it's in writing, or it's in, whether it's in written form or oral. Now, a lot of time, being clear and concise to the point, I mean, how would you try to ensure that before you spoke to your boss or to a group, of your coworkers that you would be clear, concise, and to the point. Okay, what would you do? What would you do to try to ensure that you would do these things? What would you do? It's just one word. Prepare. Prepare. Right? Yeah, it's still some more work. But the question is, do you want to exhibit excellence or do you want to just get the job done? They're two different things. Getting the job done, that's good. But that's not necessarily excellence. That's not superior. And we'll talk about that more. A lot of people, younger people, they come in, even people who are not even younger people, they mistake what's a superior performance for what is getting the job done. Okay. Be clear, concise, and to the point. So prepare. If you want to, even you know, I know someone who works for me, she actually wrote out a little script. Because we're having a conference call with the board of directors. And we talked, and she wrote out a little script. So that it helped her to, when it came time in the conference call to explain the issue, it helped her because she prepared that her explanation was clear, concise, and to the point. Okay? If you have trouble being clear and concise to the point, you will be perceived potentially a certain way. How you will be perceived? Unprepared. You can be perceived as not focused. Don't really, people may question how much you understand the issue. Right? It's perception. Right? It may not be true. It may be you really do understand it. But the perception that you may get from your boss, your coworkers, are those things. You're not prepared. You are, I forgot what I said here. You're not prepared. You're not focused. You don't have a good grasp of the issue. Okay. The written executive. Now this I think, I don't know how much this applies to lawyers, because I know how lawyers write when I ask them for something. My outside lawyer, I ask them, and it's not necessarily a legal memo. I'm sorry, it's not a legal opinion, but it's an explanation of something. And lawyers do not write in an executive summary style, in my view. Now, I think there are reasons for that. I think there are reasons for that, but as the customer, I'm the customer, I really prefer, if I had my druthers, I want something in an executive summary style. So, number one, the brain dump. People in my group do this. I'm trying to get them away from it. The brain dump is they do a presentation for a board of directors on an issue, and they give all the everything they know about that issue. Everything. It's like, that's not an executive summary. We all know that you're the expert. We all know that you know all these details. But your audience, this is not the forum. They're not looking for all the details. So it's the brain dump. Everything they know about this problem is in the PowerPoint slides. Well, I guess we got to work on those slides, right? So the brain dump, I get that sometimes. But you know, they're getting better at it. Telling a story. You know, you're telling a story. There's a beginning. Your presentation, it should be organized. It should be easy to follow. It takes practice. There's a beginning. There's a middle and an end, right? Organize that, okay, before you even start typing your PowerPoint slide. Okay, what's the beginning? The beginning is an overview, maybe. Maybe it's the issue. This is the issue. Maybe an overview. Then there's some analysis with relevant details. Then there is a conclusion or recommendation. So there's an order. You're trying to make, this is your product. When you're giving something in writing to someone, that's your product. It's no different than an aircraft. It's a product. And the people reading it are your customers. You want to make your product user-friendly, easy to use, easy to understand. This takes practice. But in order, all these things I'm talking about, in order to start to practice these things, you have to know that these are things to practice. If you don't know that these are things you should practice, then how do you know to work on it? So my point is I'm telling you, these are the things you need to think about when you start working. And if you're at least aware of it, then you have a chance to do something about it. But if you don't know anything about these things, how can you do anything about it, right? So you have to know, right, okay. So telling a story, okay? Written summary, concise, concise, concise. In almost all instances, less is more. I tend to be talking about, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, but it could also be an email. That's an executive summary form. Less is more. I would say particularly in a PowerPoint presentation. I see it's too wordy. You can say that, I've done this with people in my group. You said this bullet point in 20 words. I can say it in 7 words. Why are we using 20 words? It takes practice. It takes practice. But being concise in it, right? Not being wordy. You can say the same thing in half the words. What information is relevant to the decision makers? Don't put in, you are giving a presentation to the board of directors and they have to make a decision. You're making a recommendation. They are going to make a decision. You have to figure out what information is critical to them making the decision. It's not all the information about that transaction. It's not. It's certain things. Now you learn this over time. But this happens to me at work where I go through a draft and I say, okay, why are we putting this bullet point in? Is this something they really need to know in terms of their decision making? Is it relevant to their decision? And the person said, no, not really. Take it out. So you're making it more concise. Concise is not just how many words are in the bullet, but it's also making sure that you're only putting in relevant information for that person's need, the audience, your customer, okay? Executive summary, who qualifies as an executive? It's not just your, I would say there, ask the person. Ask the person who you're doing this for. Ask them if they want it what form they wanted it. They're your customer. In turn, ask them, do you want it in as an executive summary? Do you want all the detail? Everyone's different, right? Some people will say one is, ask them what they want, right? Ask them what they want. How do you know if you've prepared an excellent presentation? When I worked at CIBC, I worked for a guy, and I remember this. It's funny how certain people say something and you remember the rest of your life. And what he said to me was this. He said, an excellent presentation is the following. You do the presentation, you then present it, so you do the presentation, maybe it's given to the people ahead of time, right? They read it ahead of time, you have a meeting, right? An excellent presentation is when the people who you gave the presentation to, you get together in a meeting, and they say, everything is very clear, we have no questions, you've given us all the information we need, you made a recommendation, and we like it, go ahead and do it. That's an excellent presentation. Right? Now, that's the goal. That doesn't always happen. It doesn't mean that if they have some questions, it's not a good presentation. That's the ultimate, right? That's the ultimate presentation. We have no questions. It's all clear. You've told us everything we need to know. Your recommendation is good. Go and implement it. Okay. Discussions. Answer the question. Oh boy, this is a good one. Okay. Many times I ask people a question. I need to get some information to know if there's a problem or the magnitude of a problem or if it's not a problem. I ask a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question. It's very clear. And the person starts talking. They start talking about details. And I'm sitting there and I'm going that was a yes or no question. And I asked it specifically because that's what I need to know. I know, because of my experience, I know what I need to know to determine if there's a problem or not. And sometimes it's just a yes or a no. Now, to me, so I don't think that they have to work on their ability to focus on hearing what's being asked. Right? The answer could be yes, it could be no, or the answer could be, I'm not sure, I'll check it out. That's fine. I'm not sure, I'll get back to you. That's not a problem. Or, nothing is not a problem, is they can answer the question, yes or no, and if they want to add some commentary, that's okay. Okay. But from a boss's perspective, a boss is going to say, oh, they're wasting my time. Right? They could think that. They could think that. If they're really busy, the boss is really thinking that. Right? Okay. Okay, read this. Ability to communicate. This is just anecdotal based on what I just talked about. Does anyone know who said this?
Adlai Stevenson.
Adlai Stevenson. Correct. Adlai Stevenson, governor of Illinois, two-time Democratic Party nominee for the presidency against Eisenhower, lost both times. He said it as a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. It's just anecdotal based on this yes or no thing, right? Answer the question, right? Okay. Ability to persuade. This is very, very important. And this is something you learn with time, you know? How do you persuade? How do you persuade people to a point of view? To me, there may be a number of things. To me, the key thing is making a compelling argument. And I listen to people and I always say, is this a compelling argument or not? Compelling. If it's not, then they haven't persuaded me. Okay? Okay. Whom? Who do you have to make? Who do you have to persuade? Your boss. A peer who doesn't report to you, right? I can't tell a peer what to do. I can't direct him. I have to persuade him. Right? A customer. Someone who reports to me is a little different. I have a discussion with him and we may have some different opinions about what to do. And I may try to persuade him to why I want to do something a certain way. But at the end of the day, if he has a different view, I could say, you know what, this is what we're doing. I heard you out, but I think this is the way, this is what I want to do. I can direct him to do something. So I don't really have to persuade him. Maybe it's good to try to persuade him to see if we can get on the same page. But ultimately, if I think this is the right thing to do, after getting different input, I may decide, no, we need to do it this way as opposed to the way you're recommending. So that goes to whom I have to persuade, right? Your boss, definitely. Working effectively and working efficiently. Again, first understanding what these things are, and then you practice this. Okay, what does it mean to work effectively? Any ideas to work effectively? Work effectively means you are doing the right things. You have a problem. You got to do certain things, right? To try to solve the problem. It's doing the right things. Working efficiently is how you go about doing the right things. Okay? I'll give you an example. You're working on a project, you're the team leader, you have to bring in other people in your office who have different expertise. You got to bring in a sales guy, an aerospace technical guy, a lawyer, a guy who does credit analysis. You got to bring in the right expertise because you don't have all that expertise. Right? That's fine. So you bring them in. So working effectively, doing the right things would be I guess one thing that's doing the right thing is to make sure that all those people on the team are all getting the emails. They're all getting the emails, right? And that all these people are being consulted with every step of the way. Because all these people are bringing a different perspective to the problem, right? Because their background is different. So make sure that all the people on the team that you are getting input from everyone. That's doing the right thing. That's being effective. But it's inefficient it's inefficient if they are calling up individually different people and talking to them. Why don't you just have a conference call, get everyone on the call, right? So everyone can hear everybody else. You have one call. That's efficiency. If you're calling up the different people individually to find out what they think, that's inefficient. Okay? So efficiency versus, that's an example. Okay? Okay, good. It's about making progress. You know, getting to a result, it's about making progress. Are we making progress daily, weekly? There are roadblocks. Sometimes there are stalemates. We have trouble making progress. We've got to figure out a way. But it's all about, are we making progress? That's what I want to know. Are we making progress towards solving the problem? Right? It's all about that. Things you can control, things you can't control. You can't control, you know, if you're working with a counterparty, a customer, you can't control how they behave. You can't control how timely they are in responding, right? I can't make them respond when I want them to respond. But I probably can do things to try to get them to be more responsive, right? A customer. I can probably do things. I can't make them, so I don't control them, but I have, do you see the difference? There are things I can do to try to, a strategy. How can I get these guys to respond more timely? That I can control. I can try different strategies. Okay. So the difference between what you control, what you can't control. Be proactive. This is similar to making progress. This one here will maybe we'll go past that one. Let's get that one. First things first. Someone comes to me and there's going to be a call with a customer, and to resolve a problem. And we don't know how the customer is going to react, of course, what the customer is going to say. And so the person in our group comes to me and says, well, if the customer says this, then I guess what are we going to do? And I'm saying, let's not worry about that right now. Let's not worry about what we're going to do if the customer gives us an answer we don't want to hear. Let's take care of first things first. Let's worry about this phone call, see how it goes. Then let's see what the customer says. If it's not what we want to hear, then we will strategize on what's our next step. So you see what I'm saying, first things first? So when you're doing that, when you're doing first things first, you're working with focus. You're just focusing on right now the issue at hand, the next step. You're not trying to figure out, well, what if this happens from the call? What are we then going to do? Right? So you're working with more focus. Okay. It's also more efficient. Right? It's more efficient. You're also, I guess, minimizing out-of-pocket costs in this respect. For example, outside legal fees. Do we engage our outside lawyer? Well, maybe this is not yet the time. You know, maybe this is not a good use of money. Maybe we need to resolve certain questions first with the customer before we think that it would be prudent to engage our outside counsel. Right? So by doing this, you may save some money. Right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. Deadlines and target. So here's a question. Who here loves deadlines? Yeah, nobody, right? Everybody hates deadlines. They hate them. Okay. And I use the word target dates because it's not so anxiety producing. Target date sounds better, right? It's all the same thing though. Deadline and target date. You know, here we're talking about if you're managing a project and different people on your team have to do certain things by a certain date. You have to try to keep them to that commitment. You have to try to agree on dates when certain things are going to be done, and you need to try to hold them to the commitment. Right? It could be a customer who agrees to do something. It could be, a closing checklist. We do that all the time. We're close to closing a transaction. There's a closing checklist of the remaining items that have to be done, who's going to do it, and the deadline. What date do they agree to do it by? right? You'll see this, if you haven't even seen it yet, this is a very good tool, a closing checklist. Okay. So deadlines. The thing about deadlines is that when you have deadlines and you work in a professional way to try to hold people to deadlines, you're more likely to get the problem solved sooner. You'll get the transaction closed sooner. Okay? Why is that good? Because if you close a transaction to solve a problem sooner, you can then go to the next problem. So at the end of the year, you have closed 10 transactions versus 5. Because you closed because you managed the transaction, so you closed it sooner, right? If it's extended, right, then you probably, in the course of a year, you probably have less time to close other transactions, right? So it's also being more productive. Okay. Persistence, this is a big one. This is a big one, persistence. Being persistent, demonstrating persistence. When is it most important to demonstrate persistence? Here it is. It's easy to demonstrate persistence when everything's going, it's easy, right? It's easy, no problems, everything's just going smoothly. You don't even need to be persistent. But when this happens, and I guarantee it will happen, and it happens more than it doesn't. Adversity, challenges, roadblocks, difficult customers, difficult clients. You have to, it can get frustrating, but you have to take a deep breath, work through the frustration, and you have to persist to find a solution to some unanticipated problem. Employers notice this. They notice the people who have the persistence and the ones who don't. Okay? All right, here we go. Here, read this one here. About persistence. This is hanging up in my kitchen, so my kids see it all the time. It's right by the table, by the kitchen table, actually. Actually, I did learn that the outgoing commissioner of baseball, Bud Selig, has this hanging up in his office. I don't know where I found that, but I found it. Who said this? I probably don't know, but. Calvin Coolidge. Who's the other president who was born in the state of Vermont? If you know this, I'll be really impressed. Because this is not a president who I don't think has a particular, his reputation is, when I learned about him, his reputation is probably, I don't know if that's a particularly good reputation. Chester Arthur. He's born in Vermont, not far from, actually, not far from where I live. Actually, both, this is really weird, both U.S. presidents who were born in Vermont, both became presidents when they were vice presidents. They became president when the president died. Either he died or he was assassinated. And that's the way the vice president who came from Vermont became president. I don't know whatever that means, but it's sort of funny. Okay. Okay. You don't need nor are expected to have all the answers or all the best solutions all the time. No one does. That's okay. Everyone encounters situations, everyone, including me, encounters situations where they are struggling to come up with a viable solution to a problem. That's okay. But when this happens, you are expected to do what? Use your resources. So, when I say use your resources, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? Your resources. I mean, it could be a variety of things, but one thing sticks out to me. Any ideas? Huh? I'm sorry?
Colleagues.
Colleagues, yes. Peers. Not your boss, yet. Colleagues. There's nothing wrong with going to your colleague, going to certain who you think may have the right knowledge or background, and say, I'm really stuck here. Do you have any ideas? Right? Because then they're working more independently. People come to me and they're stuck on a problem, and the first thing I say, did you talk to Sergey? Did you talk to Bruce? No. Why don't you talk to them first? So it's sort of the easy way out for them to come to me to help them find the solution. I want them to do it on their own, but on their own doesn't mean by themselves. It means them using whatever resources, right? They're working more independently. They came up with a solution without my input. That's where they need to get, right? Now sometimes, and then if you're still stuck, and you use your resources and you're still stuck, then, yeah, come to me and we'll talk about it. But I really prefer I prefer them to do that, okay? Getting to the result. Use your judgment to realize when you are knocking your head against the wall. What do I mean by that? You have a problem, you're dealing with a customer, you're dealing with a colleague, there's a problem, there's a stalemate, and you keep trying the same thing over and over again, the same approach, over and over again. You try it a few times to try to get a solution or move it forward. And you start doing it over and over again, and nothing changes. So, person comes in my office, they say, okay, well, what have you been doing? I've been trying this. How long have you been trying? That's my question. How long have you been trying that approach? 2 weeks. 2 weeks? 2 weeks? Wait a minute. It's not working. You're not going to get, if you keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same result, which is nothing. Right? Nothing will change. So you've got to change your approach. So you're knocking your head against the wall. Stop doing it. Stop knocking your head against the wall. So what's next? Come up with a different approach. Right? We did that with a customer now. My group, very diplomatic, but very difficult customer. He can be very diplomatic on the phone, but it's not working. The customer's investment bank, keeps giving us the same weak arguments. We sort of refute the argument, and it goes around and around and around. I said, Sergey, this is not working. We have to change our approach with these people. Okay. So if you're stuck, if you're stuck coming up with a different approach, that's okay. Use your resources again. Talk to your colleagues who, in the company. See if they have some ideas. Like noodle with them. Okay. Flexible, very important to be flexible and adaptable, because being flexible and adaptable, very, very important, as opposed to being rigid. Being rigid in the workplace is not good. Some people are very rigid. Being flexible. So you're working on a transaction, right? And everything's really smooth. Everything's going, the customer's happy. The negotiations are fine. It's going well. And then suddenly something new comes up. A new issue no one anticipated. And suddenly, oh no, now we got a problem. What are we going to do? No one thought about this. Now you got to restructure the deal a little bit. You have to be adaptable and flexible. Yeah, it may be a little frustrating. You've got to get past that. You have to realize these things are going to happen. And you have to just work through it. And you have to be adaptable, and you have to find a solution to get you back on the rails. Right? And then something else will happen, something unexpected. And another problem. What are we going to do? Got to be flexible and adapt to these things that change. Okay? So that's the graph I'm talking about. If you call it a graph, I don't know. It's more like a mess, but okay. This sounds very basic. Develop a plan and show it to your boss. It sounds basic, you know what? But so many people don't do it. They don't do it. Even if your boss doesn't ask you, you have a project to do. He says, I'd like you to work on this. Why not draft up a plan and show it to him? It doesn't matter if he asked you for it. As a matter of fact, it's better if he did ask you for it and you show him a plan. It's better. He'll go, wow, you're putting some thought into this. You're trying to organize your thoughts. That's very good, right? Show it to him and say, I'd like your feedback. Do you have any advice, any changes to it, right? Ask for feedback. That's always good, yeah.
Do you think sometimes that bosses might think that it's a waste of time? Because I've been in situations where you develop the plan and they think it may be a waste of time, that they should have just gone to someone else who's going to bring them a final product and a final result.
Well, I would say this. I would say it depends on what the problem is. If it's very complex, a plan makes total sense. The more complex the problem, the more important it is to organize your thoughts and have some type of plan. It's just a draft. The plan may change. Every week the plan may change. That's fine. But it's organizing your thoughts. Otherwise you just start diving into it and you may be working on the wrong thing at the wrong time. You should be focusing on this, you know. Now, if your boss says to you, I don't want to see a plan, well then you can do the plan yourself if it's going to help you. I think it will help you. Maybe he doesn't want to see it. Fine. Don't give it to him. I don't think many bosses would do that. I think they would say, wow, this is very good. I didn't even ask for this. And they're putting thought into that. Okay. Simplify the complex. This will really make you stand out. But this is a learning process. This is really a learning process. People who can take a complex problem, issue, and simplify it for others. Boy, you are a star when you can do this. Or it's one thing that makes you a star. Those are the people they want on, these are the kind of people that other people want on their team. They can simplify the complex. And, you know, I'm sure you've worked on things, whether law school, a job, where it's a really complex problem. And it's like, you know, where do I start? You've got to be able to step back and simplify it sometimes. But this is practice, this is experience. But at least know it. See, this is my point here. At least know these things so when you start working, these are things you can, in your mind, you can say, how do I, you can find ways to learn how to do this. But you have to know going in, it's something you should learn. If you don't know it, you'll never have it. Okay. Another quote here. I love this one. Who said it? Lee Stevenson again. I love that. I agree 100% with that. The more I've worked, the more I said he is 100% right. All right. This is very important. Details versus the big picture. Okay. How many of you are, your strength is being detail oriented? Raise your hand. Okay, maybe half. And how many clearly you think are big picture oriented? Okay, good. What I would tell you is this. The one that you're not, learn how to be the other, learn the other one. Now, how do you learn it? You can't learn it opening a book. You can't learn it by, you learn it by working and watching your boss and watching people. These people are very valuable. They are very good with detail, but they also can step back and look at the big picture. Very, very valuable. But the other thing about this is this. You have to know, and this is judgment, and you learn this judgment. When, in the course of this transaction, this problem, at what points is the detail important, and what points do you need to step back and look at the big picture? So you have to know when. There's a certain time where the details don't matter. Let's forget about the details. It's the big picture here we have to focus on. And then once that gets resolved, then maybe next week it's time to look at the details. It's time to look at the draft legal document. Okay? So can you see why these things will make you stand out? These are the type of things that get people promoted, get them more money, get them opportunities in companies. This is what it is. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. You got to be smart enough, but all you guys are smart enough. This is what matters. This is what gets you noticed. Dealing with conflict and disagreements. Well, obviously, lawyers do this all the time, but commercial people do too. Some people are naturally more comfortable dealing with conflict among people. Customer, coworker, whatever. Some people are very uncomfortable. Right? It's the way they're, I don't know, they're wired, the way they're brought up, whatever it may be. Some people are courageous, some people demonstrate courage when it comes to conflicts. They will jump in. Other people are sort of shrinking violet. They really are really uncomfortable. Right? And they will tend to, when there's a disagreement, they will tend to give in. Because they don't want the conflict. Okay? But, you know, in the careers that you'll go into and that I'm in, you have to try to get comfortable dealing with conflict and not trying to shy away from it, because it will happen. It just happens. So what will help to develop that, what I call courage? What will help? One, this is one thing, ability to make arguments that are clear and compelling. When you can make a compelling argument, you have the courage to stand your ground. Right? Now, making compelling arguments, again, that's a matter of experience. You learn how to do that better. I do it much better now than I did 10, 15 years ago. Okay? Clear and compelling arguments. Now, here's an interesting thing that goes on in my group, and I have a sort of a view on this. Let's say there was a disagreement with a customer, and let's say you're trying to come with arguments to support your position. So the guy in my group comes with 4 arguments. 2 of them are compelling, 2 of them are flawed. Right? 2 of them are like, I don't know, that one's sort of weak. But you can make the argument, right? 2 are compelling. So here's the question. This is probably a matter of style to some degree. Maybe there's some research on it, I don't know. But do you then go to the customer, do you make all 4 arguments, or do you make only the 2 compelling arguments? I don't know if there's a right or wrong. We can debate this. I tend to think just going with the compelling arguments is better. That's my feeling. Because I think that, because what you're trying to do, you're hoping that the other person doesn't notice the flaw in the other 2 arguments. Well, you know, good luck. I mean, you know, you're sort of assuming that they won't, but you know, the people you're working with, the customer, the customer's smart, usually. But if they realize it's a flawed argument, I think your credibility, you lose credibility, I think, when you make arguments that are not compelling, that are flawed. And I think they're less likely, I think my sense is the other side is less likely to be open to your compelling arguments when you make certain ones that are not good. Also, it's sort of a waste of time, in a way. That's one way to look at it. Is it really a good use of time? Is it a good use of time? It's going to take longer to sort through this. Right? And plus, if you have a lawyer involved, then the lawyer is basically trying to support 4 arguments, 2 of which are not compelling, and you're paying them to do it. Is that a good idea? I don't think so personally. But that's me and that's my style. I would rather just do the compelling arguments. Yes.
I know we're up against the clock here.
Oh my Lord, okay.
And I know you're probably about halfway through right now.
What are we on, 50? Yeah.
I figured, would it be all right if we can just open this up to Q&A?
Sure.
I guess if anybody has any questions, because I know some
We're
have
done
classes.
already. We're a little more
I
halfway.
think it's
through.
at 1:15. We have the room until 1:05.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any questions, I think you said you're open to talking outside afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I can hang around, and anyone who has time and who wants to continue, I can continue this presentation with a hard copy.
Yeah.
Or I can talk to you on anything else. So I'm not going anywhere. So if you do want to, if you say, yeah, I have time and I'd like to either talk to me or want me to go through more slides, I will do that. But,
I just wanted to ask if anybody had any questions overall? Rush.
I'll ask you one question that I think might apply to all of us. When you are looking for outside counsel, so I'll ask you, what is the one thing that you absolutely hate that your outside counsels do? Or the one thing that you really appreciate that they do well, And when you're looking to hire outside counsel, what traits are you looking for that justify, higher legal fees? What traits would you want outside counsel?
Let me answer the first two. The first two are easier to answer. I don't have control over the outside counsel I engage. I work with the general counsel of Bombardier. He has input. And he'll give me a list, so I don't. But the first two questions, let's go to the first. So the first question was what now?
The one thing that you absolutely hate that outside counsel does, which they wouldn't do or do.
I'll tell you, is they spend a lot of time either talking with me or with a customer or customer's counsel about issues that don't really, like a open issue that is so minor. And I don't need to have that. It's not a point I need. And they spend time either talking to someone in my group and they don't know how to manage the law firm. So as opposed to saying, look, let's stop talking about this issue. This doesn't matter to me. I don't care, just give it, I don't mind giving that to the customer. I mean, that's a waste of time, it's a waste of my money. Number one. What I really like, I like lawyers who are problem solvers. Help me solve a problem, right, in the transaction structure or something like that. I think those are very, very valuable. So usually they understand the commercial side. Whether they understand it from school, they've just been a lawyer, they've been working with clients who are corporate clients, they just learn.
So then would you say that first thing that they do terribly when they're wasting time on issues that, points that you're willing to give up is a product of their unfamiliarity with the industry
No.
and your needs?
Nope. Nope. No, as a partner who is extremely, no, it's not at all. I think, no, it's not that. He understands the business extremely well. I think it's the training of the lawyers. It's this idea of zealously protecting the interests of the client. The problem is that's not the way the client thinks. This is different than a courtroom. I think they're trained like that. But as the client, that doesn't work for me. So, you see what I'm saying? Ultimately, this guy has a job because he has a client. Right? So, yeah, he understands it. He feel they're obligated. I think they feel they're obligated. As counsel, they're obligated to argue your position on everything. But there are things but also I have a relationship with that customer, a certain relationship. So they're dealing with the customer in that way, irrespective of the relationship. They need to deal with them with the relationship in mind. So do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Okay.
I want to piggyback on what Raj was saying here. You said when you're looking at attorneys for outside counsel, you're specifically looking at someone who's a problem solver, and that was your second aspect of that question. The first aspect was you don't want someone that's going to pretty much waste your time with extenuous information that's not relevant. But in my opinion, not a professional opinion at all, just long-term, a problem solver is someone who brings in every aspect of a problem to solve it. You need to see what's the good, what's the bad. So do you still think in that respect that it's bad when a lawyer is showing you what could happen in different scenarios?
No, I think it's good.
Because that's what I thought when Raj was asking when you were kind of going against. You don't want someone that's going to bring too much information that's kind of out of topic.
No. I'm talking about a certain problem.
Okay.
We have a certain stalemate with the customer on an issue that's going to be documented. Okay. And it may be a commercial related issue. I need all the resources. I need people working on that deal, including I need the resources. How are we going to find a compromise? How are we going to find, and I want the lawyers, I like a lawyer. A lawyer adds value when they can be part of finding a solution. That's what I'm saying. Now that's me personally, what I like. That's what I like.
Thank you.
Okay. I know we have some students here that probably need to get to class. I don't mean to intervene. We will be hanging around a little bit as well. He has a stack of business cards here. Feel free to take one. I'm sure you would appreciate it. Thank you.